Hey everybody, welcome back. This is another one of these magic conversations that happen. Who would have thought that in the middle of a pandemic, with no conversation, with no intimacy, with no sort of face-to-face, real like ability to hug a brother or a sister, right? That we would sit in distant places, look into a box, come into a room, meet each other as absolute strangers and walk away as incredibly good friends.
Mm.
I don't know if that will happen today because I have no idea who this person is.
You may regret inviting this
I,
crazy Brit onto your show.
I may regret inviting it, but I doubt it. In 75 conversations, I haven't regretted anybody, but we don't know what will happen. And that's the beauty,
Indeed.
that's the whole magic of what goes on in this room. The idea is two strangers walk into a room and they see what happens. They meet each other.
Hmm.
The premise of the show, really, one of the premises the is why the Mosaic has sponsored the show. The Mosaic is a book that I wrote, but the publishers have sponsored the show for me.
Hmm.
It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And
Wow.
when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven.
Hmm.
So he sets out in search of the place called heaven. He's a young boy. He thinks he's going to find it. And the people he meets are not who he would expect to meet. They're not the clergy or the teachers or the rabbis and the ministers or the swamis or the gurus or the medicine men and women or the Aborigines elders. They're common ordinary people. They're a trash man and a homeless man, a blind woman and a street artist, a waitress and a juice man, a gardener and a traveler. And he says to himself, I wonder why I'm meeting these people. What are these people going to show me about heaven?
Hmm.
But he says, I'm here. Why don't I just sit with them and see what happens? And he sits with people he doesn't know,
Hmm.
and he just listens to them. And in listening to them, what he finds is the person he gets to know through the process of listening to them, they are entirely different than the person he thought he walked up to. And what he realizes is time and time again, the person that he initially saw is not at all the person that they are. And when that happens, he says to himself, wow, I wonder what else I don't see.
Mm.
I wonder if everything in the world is just that, is a reflection of what I see rather than what is. And I wonder what would happen if I got myself out of the way, if I slid myself to the left and put all my viewpoints to the side. What would I see that would be waiting there to show me? So it inspired this conversation. It really asked me to go around the world and do a tour and sit on street corners and bookstores and corporate offices and homeless shelters and prisons and hospitals and in entrepreneurial places. But then COVID came.
Hmm.
And so here I am sitting in the luxury of my own little comfortable chair
Hmm.
in my room, sitting talking to people in their own comfortable chairs in their rooms. But there's something really neat because so far the show has gone all around the world. And we're having conversations with people that I probably would never have had conversations with had I been traveling there. It's starting to sound a little bit like a monologue. I apologize for that.
No, no, it's fascinating for me. I think this is great background and great context, just for the intention for the conversation, which is almost inviting us to see the fact that connection can happen with people that we wouldn't expect it to happen with. Number one. Number two, that those connections can lead us to our very own definition and experience of heaven. So I think
Yes.
that's great for those that know neither of us, or maybe know one of us, to have some context too, and also give some energetic direction, at least for me, in terms of where we are with our conversation today.
Perfect.
Hmm.
So we've already jumped in, but I want to
Yeah.
introduce the people that are listening to Daniel Mangena. Did I say it right?
Get her.
Mangena. Daniel Mangena. Okay, so you can see this isn't made up. I don't know how to say the guy's name. Daniel Mangena. Welcome to 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. How are you today?
Thank you, sir. I'm really, really good. How are you doing today?
I am good. When I'm really honest, I'm a little bit of an empath.
Hmm.
So over the last few days, I've been feeling lots of energies. I guess it's around, we're having the Democratic National convention, which is not really a convention,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's showing up. It's all virtual.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a talk given by Michelle Obama that I personally really liked, but I didn't want to put any slant on it. And
Yeah, I'm with you.
I just put a post on Facebook, and I said, Michelle Obama's speech, your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot of people that said that they liked it, but I got so much venom coming
Mm-hmm.
back, and so much, anger, and so much. And it like, because I'm empathic, I was caught off guard. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It just entered into me, and it's taken me about a day. Yesterday, I started feeling better. It was, but it still lingers with me.
Mm.
And so when I'm really honest, I don't think I realized quite how divided the world was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hear it, I see it, I look at it, but these are people in groups, in my own group. These
Mm-hmm.
are people in groups that believe in making affirmations and doing
Mm-hmm.
positive things,
Mm-hmm.
and so it took me totally by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So let me circle around a little bit and just
Mm-hmm.
ask you, where are you even calling from? I don't even know where you're calling from.
I'm from East London, for those of you
East
that
London.
wonder if I'm Australian, but I live in Cabo, Mexico.
Okay, you live in
So
Mexico.
in Cabo, yeah. So I'm in the middle of a
Wow.
storm right now. We've got the hurricane shutters up. I'm trying to convince my wife that she doesn't need to go and do her eyelashes this afternoon, but she's determined to do so. Um, but yeah, I moved to Mexico 2 years ago.
Wow. Cabo's beautiful when it's not in the midst of a storm. Beautiful place.
Even in the midst of a storm, it's really beautiful. Actually,
Okay.
a couple of mornings ago, there was. I woke up at about 5-ish, and I saw there was this light. There was no thunder, just lightning, and it was just beautiful because I see Land's End from my house, and so there's this beautiful backdrop of Land's End and the arc and the formation of the hills and mountains there, and then this lightning just coming from the clouds. It was really beautiful.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
Sounds beautiful. So I don't know if you're experiencing what we're experiencing here in the States, but I'm going to just paint a scenario for you.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, it seems like forever ago, we had a movement called Me Too,
Mm-hmm.
where women stood up and said, hey, I'm tired of being treated the way we're being treated.
Mm-hmm.
We've just are in the midst of a pandemic here in the U.S. at least,
Mm-hmm.
that is isolating us and keeping us pretty separate.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of that, we are having a civil rights movement
Mm-hmm.
where people of color are standing up and saying, hey, you know something, our voice matters too.
Mm-hmm.
And we are tired of being treated the way we're being treated, and we want to stand up and be seen and heard and noticed.
Mm-hmm.
With all of that going on, how are you really doing?
I've got interesting views
Please.
on some of these things. For the most part, I've kept my mouth shut. I did speak a little bit on some of my thoughts on it. I'm a firm believer that we create our own reality, and that's a hard pill to swallow when our reality looks a mess, right? I'm a co-host a couple of times a week on a podcast called LOA Today, all about the law of attraction. And we were speaking about this just yesterday in relation to, well, that's all great saying, law of attraction, we attract stuff and blah, blah, blah. But what about a baby that comes into the world and is either molested or comes in with a terminal illness? Did they create that? And I think the level of agency that you're ready to accept for your life really comes down to your belief systems about the nature of reality. My personal feeling is that whatever you believe, you're welcome to believe. So when and I'm not talking about the Black Lives Matter political movement, which for those that have looked into it and sometimes use this as an excuse to negate the civil rights aspect of it. Yeah. I'm talking about the civil rights aspect, not the political agenda.
I so accept that and agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. The political agenda I don't agree with because it's anarchist and communism just doesn't work, basically, which is the extreme version of socialism and all rich people are bad and so on and so forth. I think those generalizations are dangerous and don't really take us anywhere positive. But in terms of the civil rights aspect, which I love that you've identified and separated, it's very difficult I suppose, to say, well, I didn't choose to be black, and it's being black or being brown that's the cause of my challenges.
Yes.
And so I sympathize with that. Now, I'm from the UK. Racism is there, but it's a different kind of racism. And so when people sometimes ask me about my perspective on the Black Lives Matter civil rights movement,
Yes.
I find that I keep my mouth shut a little bit out of respect for the people whose experience is very different from my own.
Yes.
Now, the black experience in the UK is not a walk in the park. However, the level of fear that I find myself falling into around the States doesn't exist with my black experience from the UK.
Wow.
I may be beaten up for being a man of color. Police may harass me and stop and search me, and I'll be treated unfairly. And I've seen that. I've actually been a victim, for want of a better phrase, of the injustice that can happen just from being a person of color. However, that doesn't become a mortal threat to me as a matter of course.
Right.
Obviously, firearms aren't readily available to anyone and everyone in the UK. And so, I mean, I saw a video the other day of a woman who, because I didn't see all of the things, so I'm not judging the whole situation. I don't know what she was in, but she pulled her firearm at a woman and was like, get back, get back, get back.
Wow.
And that could have been a mortal situation for the woman. Now, I don't know if it was about race, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that someone can lose their cool or feel threatened because of a prejudice that they hold and take a person's life. That young man who was just jogging in his own area, people thought that he wasn't supposed to be there because it was a white area and lynched him. I mean, that still happens in America. It doesn't happen to that degree in the UK. So I don't have the same black experience.
Gotcha.
And I respect that. Even down to the fact that, you know, my wife is not only white, but she's blonde hair, blue eyed and Russian. Can I say that I don't know what my dating experience would be like if I was raised as an African American. I grew up in a home where we were taught not to see race. We saw people for who they were, and we don't have the same social constructs around interracial dating, for example. Is it still there? You know, there are cousins that have got things to say about it. I know people that are like, well, you know, couldn't you find a black woman, and so on and so forth. But the same underlying insidious dissonance between the races isn't as profound in the UK for most. I'm not saying for all, for some it might be, as it is in the US. And so I have a level of respect for those fighting essentially the battle of civil rights in the US. I have phases of the argument where I keep my mouth shut out of respect for the challenges that people are facing that I don't necessarily understand. But none of that negates the fact that I still believe that we do have the power to, if not create, at least remake our reality, and that change can be something that we can achieve, and that there is a model that we can follow in order to do that, which isn't always easy, but is always possible, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I love when already there's such resonance between belief systems and we don't know each other from Adam, right? And it's one of the miracles to me that happens, because when people are given the freedom to really express what they believe, there's so many areas of agreement when there could be, and we focus so often on the things that are different. It's funny that you say we don't, you know, the black person comes in and they didn't create themselves to be black, and they say this is association. Well, when I came out of my mom's womb, I literally remember myself looking at myself and going, hold it, what happened? Like, what happened? I was supposed to be a black man. I made an agreement to be a black man when I came in.
Wow.
And I looked at my skin and I went, holy Toledo, you know, look, you messed up, God. Like,
I think we switched my meat sack here. Can I get the chocolate model, please?
That's what I think, like, what the heck happened? You know? And it's sort of comical, beautiful way of describing that I do think that we come back around more than a few times. But
Yeah.
that's my own belief system, that we're not
Hmm.
just born here this one time and we're done.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
accrued on those things, we do look at why a baby comes in the way he does or she does, and why a person
Hmm.
comes in to the economics and situations that they come into. So can I ask you again?
Sure.
Because I love you, I love the way you think, but that really was
Thank you.
that really wasn't my question. Um, and I want you to know I'm interested in hearing the answer to my question, if you
I
want
went
to.
off on a tangent. I went
Which
off on
is,
a tangent.
which is, which is, which is, how are you?
I find myself bouncing between being really good and a little bit discombobulated.
Huh. Honest.
So I find that there are days when I question if I believe and teach bullshit BS,
Yeah,
and then days when I'm reminded, oh no, this is real.
yeah,
I find that my practices, especially like check-ins that I do every few hours, I do a check-in and see where I'm at. Generally speaking, keep me on the straight and narrow. But there are days like yesterday evening, some stuff happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself this evening just to eat some cheesecake, watch some Netflix, and then I'm going to have a good night's sleep and get back to it tomorrow. And I think that that is one of the things that enables me to show up at
yeah,
the highest level on a day-to-day basis, that I don't demand of myself that I show up every day
yeah,
at the highest level, but I sometimes give myself opportunity to just feel a bit crap, to acknowledge that things are a bit funky in some areas. But generally speaking, I find myself to be, I read energy also, not so unconsciously as an empath. I wouldn't qualify myself as an empath, but I can consciously step in and read an energetic situation
yeah.
with quite a level of clarity. So I don't find myself caught up in a lot of the storm, but I can see the storm happening around, if that makes sense.
Totally,
And generally
totally.
speaking, it's that it's my personal crossovers with that sometimes have me feeling okay, I need a break, I need a timeout. But today I'm really, really good. I allowed myself a lie-in. I had a session with a healer that I work with once a week this morning. So you caught me on a, a decompressed and released stage. I've got my meditation in. I've tackled getting this mic set up, which was giving me some frustration for a couple of days. I've got my exercise bike arrived yesterday, and I've started putting that together, and I'm feeling good about that. So there's some really good flow happening right now for me.
I love it. You know, we just jumped in, but we still have no idea who you are. And so, would you mind sharing with us who you are?
My name is Daniel Mangena. Most people call me Dan. I've written a few books. I do some speaking, some teaching. I have a podcast called the Do It With Dan podcast. I also feature on a couple of other podcasts, as I've mentioned today. And generally speaking, what I'm really passionate about doing is empowering people to live more abundant, joyful, purpose-driven lives, and to do that through the medium of setting clear intentions and creating alignment with those intentions. And that's what I tend to write about and speak about.
Beautiful. And I'm going to ask you a sort of a off question, if I can.
Sure. All
I,
bets
w-
are off.
I was recruited by a company that's called Vistage. I ended up not going with them, but they bring CEOs in and they train CEOs to work with other CEOs.
Hmm.
And one of the things that they say to people is, when you come here, you think we're going to answer your questions, but really what we're going to do is question your answers.
Got you.
That was what attracted me to them.
Mm.
I didn't feel much more aligned to them after that than that question.
But it
But
sparks something.
but I still give honor to them for asking the question, even though I have to honestly say I wish it had been my question. I wish I had came up with that, but it doesn't matter. Um, why is it so important for you to help people?
It wasn't always, but there's a level of fulfillment that entered into my being when I listened to what was a faint call and became a louder call. I actually had a very much a Jonah and the whale experience for me.
Okay.
God literally gave me the invitation. I said, yeah, I'll do it later. And then it's like, oh, what, why do you need to do it later? Because I'm doing this, this, and this. Okay, so I'm going to take that away.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see if there's anything to talk about. So I had a very successful consulting business that I built up from scratch, as in from scratch. I was working in a call center and built it up from nothing up to 6 figures a month. I took on partners and that was great for a while. And then the call came to do what I do now. And over time, the call got louder. And then I said, okay, I'm going to start to wind down my interest in the business and put some money aside. And then I focused myself on getting to a particular figure. And the funny thing is that everything lined up for the manifestation of that figure. And then whilst I was at a meditation retreat, one by one, every single component of that fell apart. My partners stole my business from me. Well, they stole everything from inside and left me the empty shell. And then I thought I was going to go completely broke. Everything sort of went down to nothing. And it was in that moment I realized that I didn't trust that God was going to look after me if I answered the call. Wow. And in that moment, I said, I see. So this is a leap of faith moment. And I shut down the website for the business. I closed off my email account. I left money on the table. I walked away. And then within 2 weeks, I'd manifested £120,000, which became then my cushion that facilitated me making the transition into what I do now. Initially, I hadn't intended to make any money with it. I gave myself fully to the process. I had a very visceral meditation experience that I write about, where I just said, it was the 13th of February, 2018. I said, okay, that's it. I'm going. And I packed up everything in the UK. Everything went into storage. I packed a backpack, a suitcase and a suit carrier, and I used the money that I had moving around the world and teaching my model Beyond Intention. And yeah, that's where the story started, and here I am today.
Fabulous. So, can I delve into that a little?
Delve away. This is your party, sir.
This is your party. The reason why I want to delve into it is because there's so many interesting things that have come up as a result of what you just said. And for people who are listening, I want them to get involved in this conversation in their own space. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this beautiful quality of just trusting and just understanding that, did I really trust the greater power that's in this universe to be able to supply for me what I need when everything had been taken away from me? Mm-hmm. Are you old enough to remember what an overhead projector is?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so I want you to take, I'm an old guy, so I still use that image. You're probably much more cool, high-tech images that I could use.
Overhead projectors, they're very, very great technology.
I love those guys. So I want you to take a plastic sheet and draw on it your experience of trust. Mm-hmm. And I want you to be able to see that on the screen in front of you. Mm-hmm. And then I want to take another plastic sheet and put on it your desire to help people. Mm-hmm. And I want you to just set that on top of it. Mm-hmm. And I want to know what image you see with both of those images together. Are they a blended image? And don't make it up. Don't try and say the right answer. I just want to know that. What do you see? Because I see something very clearly in my head that I want to ask you about, but it doesn't matter what I see. It matters what you see.
I see a fleet between a cave with a light at the end and a door with an angel behind it. Those are the two images that sort of, it flicks between a vision of those two.
Wow. So explain.
I want to close my eyes. Well, I'll preamble it with a little story about what happened the summer of 2018.
Yeah, we still don't know who you are. We still don't know what you do. We're talking about what you do, but we have no idea. So fill that in for us also in the story, if you don't mind.
So I I literally did a surrender experiment. I read the Surrender Experiment by Michael
Yeah,
Singer,
he's a friend
and
of
I did
mine.
a surrender experiment.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Oh, he's a friend of yours, you said.
Yeah,
Oh, there's the 1 degree of separation kicks in. So I I I literally just I almost built the muscle of trust by going on this adventure where for 2 months I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where the money was coming from. I didn't know
yeah,
how I was going to be getting from place to place. I didn't know where I was going to stay, how I was going to eat. And I just said, okay, where I'm called, I will go.
beautiful.
And these were interesting conversations I was having with people like, hey, I heard that you were there. Do you think you could come here? I can bring some people together for you to teach and you can stay with me.
This is them
Okay,
saying that
yes.
to you.
There's people saying that to me and I'm saying
Okay.
yes. And I'm going. And where are you going next? I don't know. And when there was, you're dealing with couples or families and it's like, so this strange guy's in our house. When's he going? He's waiting
Right.
for the universe to say when he's going next. And so there were some very interesting conversations, but everything showed up. Someone would say, hey, come and teach here. We're going to pay you some money and pay for your travel and give you a place to stay. Or someone will say, hey, I know you don't really coach, but would you work with me a little bit? And here's some money to do that. Or someone would say, hey, I got some air miles, but I'm not using them. I see you're traveling around. Would you like some air
Love it.
miles?
Love it.
And it was literally a cycle of that. And things didn't always look like they were going to go right. Things sometimes looked like they were going to go horribly wrong. There was one time when I actually had some money, but then my luggage got lost and I was stuck in LAX with no way to get to I had a place to stay for a week, but I had no way to get there because my wallet was in a lost suitcase.
Wow.
But I did have one card in my pocket, but that card had no money in it. And I didn't have online banking. And a friend texts me out of the blue and says, how are you doing? And I'm like, oh man, I'm a bit stuck. And he sent me like £200, like $300. And that managed to get me where I needed to go. And then my luggage ended up. So it wasn't an easy flow. We're not
Right.
talking about like this beautiful,
Right. Right.
there was obviously beautiful moments where, hey, come here and hey, where do you want to go next? We'd love for you to just stay with us for a little bit if you don't mind. As in, I've done a workshop on a Sunday, no idea where I'm going to be from Monday going forward.
I understand.
And they're like, do you have to go to the next place? Can you stay with us? Like, my family love you and want you to stay with us for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they happen to be driving somewhere which is like 5 minutes away from where I've been invited to go next. And so everything connected and clicked with that.
So let me break in a minute here.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel for you to be
Liberating.
liberating? Okay. So here's really the question that I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not asking it to challenge you, I'm asking it to understand you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I wrote the Mosaic is more than just the stories that I wrote. It's the spaces between the words have taught me more than the actual words have told me.
Mm-hmm.
And the spaces between the words has started to work on me by saying, Danny, you're considered wise. People come to you and want all sorts of counsel from you, and you give counsel, and isn't that great? And I said, not really. I mean, I'm sort of bored of it. I'm sort of tired of it. You know, it's sort of, I don't believe in a vertical reality where there are people that need to self-help, help other people and teach other people and lead other people and govern other
Mm-hmm.
people. There's something in the Mosaic reality that I love, which is all these pieces just are horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the process of coming together, what happens is something magical happens.
Mm-hmm.
Much like what's happening in this room right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is no counsel or guidance, or just there's the opportunity to get to know each other and sit with each other. And through that coming together, something beautiful happens, which is the experience of your surrender experience. You didn't know how it was going to happen. You had no idea. No one was teaching you how to do it. No one was telling
Mm-hmm.
you what to do. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't you give that experience to people rather than the experience of you giving an experience to them? Does that make sense to you?
It does. And perhaps some context on how and what I teach might fill in some
Yeah,
blanks on
we
that.
have no idea. I still don't have any
Yeah.
idea what you said.
So my thing is this, is that I believe in infinite possibility. I believe that there is no one way to do anything. There is no right way to do it, no wrong way to do it. Every way is a way. And I believe the mind doesn't lose. Whatever's an imprint in the unconscious mind will find its way to our reality. And then I believe that sometimes it's optimal for us to have some support in finding the way to what we desire. I found that to be true in my life, that guidance and support has empowered me to have the level of agency that I have in my life. And that sometimes, not all times, our movement forward is supported from God speaking to us through the voices of others, or giving us a perspective on what we can't see ourselves. When you think about it, we've never seen our own face. I can see my face here, but it's not my face. It's a reflection of my face. I've never actually seen my face. I've never seen my back. I've never seen there are parts of me that I've never seen. And that sometimes God can use another person's eyes to show me that about myself. To take it another level deeper, I follow hologram theory. So I think that everything's a reflection of what's going on inside of us anyway. And so even when a teacher does come, it's an aspect of me speaking back to me. Now, I don't believe in forcing myself on anyone. I don't do salesy calls. I make myself available to support those who may be supported by what I have to share. But I do my level best to really be in a space of integrity about it being me being in a position to add something to this person's life. There have been times when people have wanted to pay me to work with them, and I've simply taken some time to show them how they can support themselves. Yeah. There are times when it'll be optimal for that to go further, but then to take it another level deeper, because I believe in hologram theory, when someone comes to work with me, I don't believe that I'm working with them. I believe that they're working with me.
Okay.
I believe that anyone that comes into my life is an opportunity for me to see something that needs to be healed within myself. I believe that when someone asks a question of me, even for the podcast or on one of my coaching programs, it's dialing in an area of my reality where I can step into a new level of mastery, a new level of agency, a new level of service to the overall grand scheme, the overall grand mosaic, if you will. And so I don't believe I'm impeding anybody. I believe that they're actually supporting me in healing myself.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Go for it.
I feel like you've said that before. Not that it doesn't feel real, but I feel like you've said some of that language before.
I have.
In answer to what you've done.
I have.
Can I invite you to do something?
Go for it.
Can you slide all that to the right? It's no longer available for our conversation right now.
Okay.
Tell me now what you see.
I see the people I work with as missing pieces of myself.
Okay. I had a beautiful woman say to me when I was getting ready for my trip, and I asked her because she had done a year-long or 2-year-long trip herself, and I said, what piece of advice would you give me if you could give me a piece of advice? And she said, as long as you go out and you see that everybody you meet is going to be you talking to you about you, you'll be fine. So, pardon me if this feels like I'm pushing, because I really don't.
No, push on.
I don't really want to have an agenda. I just
push on.
I have an immediate love for you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and I love the way you think. I love the way your mind thinks, and this is a brilliant opportunity, because who knows if we'll ever see each other again, right?
I'm sure we will.
Thank you.
I'm setting the intention on that one anyway.
Okay, just to get an idea about this, that if everybody you meet is a piece of you, who are you really instructing? Who are you really teaching? And how open? One of the things, I don't know if you've seen this in the world that you live in. I've seen so many teachers that are beautiful teachers that are really open and receptive, as long as they're in a slightly vertical position. But when they get to a horizontal position, they're not as open and receptive. And to me, that steals the intimacy from the relationships that are most precious.
Mm.
And so part of what I'm really asking you, because I believe that, like, I feel you so much, is, are you the surrender experiment that you did, which I've done too.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like a prostitute standing on the street selling my wares. Right?
Yeah.
And I had pretty good lines, and I had pretty good come-ons, and I had pretty good things that attracted people.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt cheap like a whore.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though I was helping people,
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't feel right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I just decided to do, doesn't mean anybody else should do it, is I just decided to open up this room.
Mm-hmm.
And to just allow magic to happen in this room. And I have no idea how that will financially support itself. I don't know if it will ever will. I don't know if I'll meet people or what will happen. But you know what's happening slowly? People are starting to contact me and say, boy, I would like you to run a room like this in our business.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like you to come to our family and sit around the table with us and have a room like this. Would that be possible?
Mm.
And I question it all the time because I say to people, I don't even have any idea why you would want me, because what am I doing? All I'm really doing is holding the space to love you and appreciate and accept you, to acknowledge you and validate you, and to listen to you and hear you. You don't need me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and separate myself out from it because it has some verticality to it, as long as they think they need me to do that, right?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And you're somebody who has the power to introduce a horizontal reality, and that's why I think I'm just inviting you into the space, not because I want you to come anywhere that you don't want to go,
Mm-hmm.
but just like, what would that feel like to you?
I think, again, adding more meat to the bones about the journey, I actively avoided having any paid coaching or teaching. Actively, as in, no, I don't do it. I was going to write my books. I was doing my podcast so that people would hear me speak and maybe invite me to speak.
By the way, before you go further, tell me the title of your book so we just have it here.
Okay, so the principal book about my work is Stepping Beyond Intention.
Stepping Beyond Intention, okay.
And I've got a book that talks about my idea and why everything I talk about Dream with Dan and Dream as CEO, which is the Dreamer's Manifesto, which gives an idea of my vision for how we live.
And you'll send me links to those so we can put it in.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will just dreamwithdan.com/books has got all the books that I've been involved in or writing. But yeah, I didn't want anything. And I was using my own money, you know. I walked away from business and I wasn't interested in doing anything. I literally was, I wanted to be the backpack guru, right? Until I started to realize that I was actually starting to develop an egoic identity around being able to say that I was the backpack guru.
Totally.
That was the first red flag for me.
Totally.
And so I just paid attention to it and kept an eye on it. And then I realized that the work that I was coming into had more scope to be shared with more people. And that started to linger with me. And I was driving in a car with my friend Barry. He's a mentor of mine now, but at the time he's just someone that I knew, but now a very successful businessman from California. And he came to one of my events and he was giving me a lift somewhere and he saw my life was there in the back of his car. He said, "This is all your stuff." I said, "Yep, this is," and I was very gleeful. "Yep, this is me." And I bounced around and he said to me, he's very, 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 very tuned in. When Barry speaks, there's sometimes he just drops in and you can just feel the resonance of his words. He said, "Dan, have you ever thought that the work you're doing is being denied its full expression because you're not opening yourself up to abundance?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "I'll sit with that." And I sat with it. And I started to allow the vision to grow in terms of not me getting more money from more people to do the same thing, but me being able to reach more people in the same way,
Totally.
if that makes sense.
100%.
And that's when I opened myself up to abundance. And then, I built up 6-figure coaching business within 4 months. I've still to this day got less than 1,000 people on my email list. I wasn't sliding into people's DMs and saying, hey, do you want a coach or anything like that? The people who I was called to serve came to me.
Yeah.
I would do a post about something I was thinking about doing, and 100 people would want to take part in it. And when something felt like it was out of integrity, then God would show me.
Yeah.
Because nobody would respond to it.
I love it. Mm-hmm. My question isn't around the finances of the backpack guru.
Okay.
My question is around the guru of the backpack guru.
Okay.
Like, I don't mind if you're the abundant backpacker. I don't mind that. I don't mind anything. Right? I don't even mind if you're the abundant guru.
Mm-hmm.
But I just watch for myself, and really, this is just a question of me talking to me about me right now.
I'm with you.
So if it's relevant to you, I'm sort of asking.
No, it's intriguing because it's firing different neural pathways for me, because these are questions that I don't encounter. So it's good.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
The guru aspect of someone who has knowledge, and as someone who is wise, and someone who has a big heart like you and I have, is so easy to back into a limelight that we never even wanted to go into. By being the backpack guru, or by being, the old man who sits on a chair and just counsels, or by setting up a room and everybody goes, wow, this room is so magical and I can't believe what happens in it. And suddenly, I was at Hay House for a lot of years. I was a director of business development there. And Hay House grew while I was there, from $3 million a year to $100 million a year. And clearly that was way more than what I was doing. But I was in charge.
You're a contributing factor.
I was at the spear point of it, right? Because I was a director of business development, and that was business development. And it's so easy to wear that mantle, when really what I saw as I stepped back is extraordinary things happened because extraordinary people got together and created extraordinary things. There was really, our verticality got us lost. We started to think, and I did it too. I started to think, oh, look at me. I can go and spend a lot of money. I can go and I'm talking to all these big names, and they're coming to me and they're talking to me. And all of a sudden I went, whoa, dude, where are you going? I'm like, where's that going to take you?
Danny, can I say?
Please.
God's been very speedy in slapping me down whenever I've wanted to do that. I mean, when I was 19, I made my first million with a business that was 19. And I got one word wrong on a document, opened me up to trouble with the law. I ended up losing the business, going to jail for 4 years. And that experience is what led to the creation of Beyond Intention for me, because I reached a point where I looked at, because again, at the time I'd set myself up to help people. I wanted to help people and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But when I look back, I wanted to help people so that I could be the one that helped people.
Yes, bam.
So good. This verticality that you're talking about.
I want people in the audience that are listening to this to just hear what he just said. And I want you to ask yourself, why are you helping? Like, one of my questions to you right off the bat is, why do you need to help people? Right? And I love that what you said now is not where you are now, but that you wanted to help people because you wanted to be the one to help people. Listen.
Yes.
Are you helping people so that you can be the one to help them? Or are you helping them because there's nothing else to do? A fruit tree can't do anything but give fruit. That's just what it does.
And that's where I feel I am now. And I think one of the points of gratitude, when I had my big experience on the 13th of February, because I've been grateful for parts of my experience and I've been grateful for what my experience had given me. But there were pockets of the experience that I didn't open up to the fullness of gratitude for because I put it in a box. So, well, I can't be grateful for that, so I'm going to put it away. But in that moment, it was actually a Dr. Joe Dispenza event in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I was doing this walking meditation and I was hit with this rerun of everything, but through a completely different lens, wherein I saw that all of those experiences, including losing everything, including getting it all horribly wrong, including being an arrogant toe rag that asked for the trouble that he ended up getting, all of that leading to a combination of people, places, and things and experiences that brought me to a place where I could be grateful for it, creating the version of me that I was there and then.
Beautiful.
And that's when I felt able to really step in and go on the journey that I went on. And I have that marker of what happens when you try to do God's work without holding God's hand.
Love it. Love it.
And so the horizontal vertical thing for me is I'm almost scared of the vertical,
okay,
right? And I actually have to, when there are points where there's a level of service by being a little bit vertical in order to come back to horizontal or to bring people up to that horizontal space, part of my work is maintaining a level of integrity within myself that doesn't stop me being vertical or horizontal, but make sure that whenever I'm in either one, I'm not there without holding God's hand. And I know that whenever I do, I get slapped down anyway. So
love it. You said something in the midst of a paragraph that would be so easy to pass over, and I tried to pass over it for all this time but it's been about 4 or 5 minutes ago that you mentioned it. and the way my mind works is I try and push it down because it just feels like, look, we're someplace else now. Why go back to that statement? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even really the statement, but it was about when you were 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You had made $1 million, and there was one word in a contract that you had made that had got you into trouble.
Yeah.
And what came to me was, for people listening, for myself, for you, how important those words are that we say.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have beautiful words.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's one word that's out, it can get us into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a word that's out right now for you? Doesn't have to be yes. It's not an intuitive.
I'm just tuning in. Tuning in. Victim is what's coming forward.
Victim.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the context of it is, and I'd love to sit with that, maybe journal on it myself, but that's the word that's coming forward.
Wow. Are you surprised by it?
Yes and no, because it's something that I have worked with a lot. But yes, in terms of maybe something something else is going to come up. But it's like, hi again, Mr. Victim. All right. I guess that's what we're working with today.
Yeah. Could it be the victim is your go-to answer and there was really something else behind it?
I'll check in, but I wouldn't say victim would be my go-to, but I wouldn't say it was, but I'm prepared to peel it away.
Okay. Not necessarily now, but just.
No, it feels like that's what it is.
Great.
There's definitely more substance to it, but that's the
yeah.
entry point to whatever the exploration is.
So again, in order to make this real for people at home, mm-hmm. just look how beautifully honest and real and raw and vulnerable Dan is with us right now. And being able to move from this beautiful presenter to this beautiful place where he feels where he allows a question like for me to just take the poise to come up with something and find something and go in and look at it. Are you willing to do the same thing at home, listeners? Are you willing to come off your throne for a little bit? And I'm not saying Dan was on a throne, but there's an old song that I used to love. Come down off your throne, leave your body alone. Right? It's just, are you willing to come down off your throne for a minute and just vertical to horizontal? You said something else that I wanted to just bring up, and this isn't like the rest of normally I have a sort of set of questions. We're never going to get to those, so it's okay. But I love this conversation. It's really rich. You said that you're somewhat scared of the verticality.
Mm-hmm.
And I assumed that that meant, and I want to just make sure I'm assuming correctly, that the verticality is you above and giving to
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you also scared of the verticality with you below?
No, I love being below. I love to receive.
Okay.
It's even down to chess. I don't like if I keep winning. If I keep winning, then I'm at the wrong table.
Fabulous.
I believe that the opportunity for expansion is always there. And if we're not growing, we're dying. And so I continue to invest a lot in my own personal development, working with healers and teachers who are adding maybe not even something new, but just a different perspective. I can continue to read and study and learn because it's important for me to always be growing. That's I and consciously make
I
the
love
effort
it.
to do that. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to even slice it thinner.
Go for it.
Okay. Because with you, I love that I feel like I can do that.
Go for it.
It doesn't mean that I see something. I mean, I just want to ask that.
Sure.
Um, we love boxes.
Mm-hmm.
We love teacher. We love student.
Mm-hmm.
We love horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
They're all boxes that help us define the reality. But we don't always live in boxes. Most of us don't live in a box, even though our houses look like boxes. Our cars look like boxes. We're talking into a box now, right? but I don't believe those define our reality. So I want to slice it even thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in you that's scared of the horizontalness of not a teacher that comes to teach you and you become a student, or a student that comes to you to be taught, but just a regular Joe on the street? Can you be a regular Joe on the street with a regular Joe on the street? Does that scare you?
I'm going to check in and see what comes up because my immediate answer is no, but I want to continue the same vein of introspection. Most of the time, no, but every now and then, a part of me wonders, what's the point?
Got you.
If we're not teaching anything, we're not helping each other, we're not expanding each other. And I feel saying that out loud, that perhaps that's a pocket for growth, even in shedding the story,
Yeah.
that there's no point. Because I'm even going in my mind, are there things in my life that are opportunities for growth? But because at this level of consciousness, maybe from this level of ego even, I don't see the point, I don't explore the point, and therefore don't have the opportunity to receive the point of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, you so much sense. You don't. I mean, I can't. It's like the most sense that I could ever have. I feel like I have dollars, not cents now.
So yeah, that's a interesting one to catch. Actually, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful because it's, again, remember, it's me talking to me about me.
Mm.
So for me, what's the most interesting relationship is those relationships where I don't need to fix something or be fixed. I don't need to help somebody or be helped. I just need to be available to somebody. Like sometimes my wife will look at me and she'll say something to me, and this was months ago. And I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And she said, oh, you're the great listener and you haven't heard a word I just said, did you?
Oh.
And I said, no, just Shusha, you're 100% right. I am so sorry.
Mm.
I am so sorry because I was caught up in something that I thought was important. But what's more important than giving my full attention to my wife? Right?
Do you know what you just brought up for me? And I think this is one for anybody that does anything that serves, even if it's just a small group of people, any space of service. It's losing our home self in the service self, if that makes sense.
100%. My wife says to me, you love everybody, but by the time you come home to us, you're tired. You're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish I could just be a call in your room sometimes. And in fact, I said to her, why don't you come into the room and let's have a discussion? Not
Mm-hmm.
because I want to limit ourselves to that, but I just want to like hear what it is you want
Mm-hmm.
to say. And we had a beautiful discussion in the room, and it's there for everybody to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But there are stories, at least in my life, that I've constructed because I've had a lot of loss and a lot of pain, and a lot of people close to me have passed away or been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That I started to believe for a little while that if you got too close to me, you would get hurt. So if I loved you, why would I let you come that close? So
Wow.
I'm just gonna hold you off a little bit. I'm gonna keep a little distance,
Wow.
not because I'm scared of you, but because I don't want you to get hurt by coming too close to me. Because everybody who comes close to me gets hurt.
Mm.
And when I
That's a
saw,
deep one.
yeah, when I saw that, I thought, holy, you know. So what am I really doing? The people closest to me, I don't even let in. Why would I do that? And that excavation, that discovery of walking through that minefield for me is really still in process. I said to my wife at one point, most people will never see it because they'll never get close enough. But 2 millimeters from my heart is a razor blade sharp wall. And if you get too close, it'll shred you to bits.
Wow.
But most people out there that I'm kind to and nice to and generous and loving and all that, oh wow, you're the most loving guy in the world. Yeah, I am, but just don't get too close.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to get hurt. Not because I don't want them to be close to me. I really have a longing for that. I have a desire for that intimacy. That's what this room's all about. To just be able to sit with a stranger. But I had a woman walk into this room, beautiful woman. I'm going to do work with her. She's going to help me build this out, you know, to have more conversations. Because why, if I believe in a mosaic, would there only be one person having conversations? Why not have a mosaic of people having conversations? And she said, "Oh, you know, I relate to that because I have way more intimate conversations with strangers than I do with people that are close to me."
Is it? I think there's what's pinging up for me is even as I'm listening to this conversation, I'm hearing things I'm saying. It's like, oh, I hope blah blah doesn't hear this conversation, or
Wow, wow,
and I was just like, as you're, but I hadn't noticed that voice was there until you just said that.
wow.
I'm thinking, is it easier to be naked with a stranger than with people that we think have seen our body, but maybe have only seen it in a certain light?
Yeah.
Or where is that fear? Or is it? I mean, you've excavated it with you. You found the point of it. It's I've had this experience of people close. My fear isn't of you. My fear is for you. My instinct is to protect you by not allowing you into this space where there's danger.
Yeah.
But how many of us have actually done a
Yeah,
deep dive to see why we've got that wall up?
but even that, with all due respect, is just bullshit. It's just a story. That story isn't really true. And that's why I say how brilliant our minds are at protecting us from, like, I'll create a whole story that my fear of getting close to you isn't about you being able to see me completely. It's about me wanting you not to be hurt. And there's some truth to that because my parents passed away, my wife passed away, my daughter's developmentally delayed. There have been people that have come close that have you know bad things have happened. I don't think it's because of me. I don't think it's because of anything. I think it's just like if you look out in the world, that happens to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've constructed such a neatly constructed story that I have so much love for you. I don't want you to come too close to me because you'll be hurt. But it's all bullshit.
Mm.
It's really just me seeing me, talking to me about me again.
Mm.
And the beauty for me is when we slide that left, which I can do sometimes. I'm scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
What's there in front of my eyes? Like when Mo sat down and talked to those people in the Mosaic, and he slid the preconceived notion of who he thought the homeless guy was, and just sat and talked with him. What did he actually hear?
Mm-hmm.
Who was that person really? It was totally different.
Mm.
Well, how totally different would my world change if the belief systems that I think I believe so strongly I gave him an opportunity to take a rest. Like, let's just, if we were playing basketball, you can sit on the bench for a few minutes. Let's put the subs in for a little while. You need a rest anyway. What would that court look like? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said about not beating ourselves up for the fear of putting it to the side.
Yeah.
And being okay with having these, I don't want to say shortfalls, but these working points in our human experience.
Yeah.
Not to say, oh, well, I'm human, so I guess I don't need to work on that. I'm just going to keep on with it. But as I do continue to plug away at growing beyond it, that I don't beat myself up for what's still left to work on, if that makes sense.
100%. And that, for me, is why they speak in every scripture about the road being a narrow road. That, like, either way you lean, you can fall off. So you can fall off by being too hard on yourself. You can be, well, I'll fall off being too hard on yourself, right? And so, which really is just another beautifully elaborate story for why we just don't walk the path that we know we have to walk. And yeah, we're going to beat ourselves up. So what? Yeah, we're gonna glorify ourselves. So what? Who cares? We just walk where we walk, and we fall down, and we get back up, and we fall down. We get back up, we rise up, and we fall down, and we rise up, and we fall down, and when we live, for me, the beauty of a horizontal world is we have people side by side with us that say, "Can I help you out?" With no teach in it. Oh, you just fell down. Are you comfortable there? Or can I give you a hand? Right?
There's the horizontal. It's not, you've fallen down and I am sent by the heavens to lift you up.
Right. Or I have a need to help you because I see you're falling. And there's so many people.
Did you see that I lifted someone up? Did you come and see I'm about to lift somebody up?
That's right. That's right.
Look how strong and wonderful I am.
And it's so subtle because the work of lifting people up is so beautiful. I mean, who would ever have a conversation like this idiot of me saying to people, why is it so important for you to help people? That's an obvious thing. We naturally want to help each other.
But there's something behind it sometimes. And I think it's beautiful to explore. And I love that you didn't let me use my normal narrative, because I still feel that the underlying narrative is the same, but even using a different set of words gives me a different connection to myself through the experience of exploring that without my normal set of words.
There's a beautiful practice that I learned years ago in Zen. It's called Zen Mind is the beginner's mind, and you've probably heard of it, but it's being able to do that which you do 1,000,000 times as if you've never done it before, and you do it for the first time. And one of the practices in that is to reframe the way you say the story that you say. It's still the same story. Like, for instance, I would say to people, the person that's the most important person in my life is, I have the honor of having a developmentally delayed child. And someone said, you know, I've heard you say that so often. And it's beautiful, and it's nice, and it's be kind. But why don't you tell the story a little differently? And so I change the story around occasionally, and I change it around a lot now. But I said, you know, I've had the opportunity to be with the richest people in the world and the poorest people in the world. I've had the opportunity to be with some of the people that inspire people the most, not in their hall rooms listening to them, but at their dining room tables, playing with their kids in the living room. And I've had the opportunity for them to ask my counsel and for me to get their counsel. And what a beautiful gift that's been. And you know what? Out of all those people, out of all the people that I've met, I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with the poorest of the poor. And the two people that have changed my life the most was a homeless man in San Diego and my daughter. And my daughter just happens to be developmentally delayed. And yet she's changed my life more than just about anybody else, because she can't speak like you and I speak. And she taught me that she would speak and then yell and then tantrum and then attack. And it went on for a long time, 15 years, sometimes 3, 4, 10 times a day. And And I thought, God, I'm a sensitive, smart, intelligent man. Why can't I figure this out?
Mm-hmm.
Until finally, in the midst of her rage one day, I just looked at her and I said, Elisa, I just can't do this anymore. You know I love you more than anybody in the whole world. And she has a song that Daddy loves me more than anybody in the whole wide world. And she sings to herself, and she sings it over
Mm-hmm.
and over. And she knows I want to understand her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, Elisa, it's not, I just can't get it. So I know that when you speak and then I don't hear it, you yell it. You yell it because you think that I'll hear it that way. And then you get frustrated and you tantrum. And then you tantrum and then you get, and then you want to attack because you're so frustrated. But I want to hear you.
Mm.
How can you say it to me in another way? Can you tell me what you're trying to say without using words? Because I just can't understand your words. And she looked at me in perfect English and she said, I am Daddy.
Hmm.
And I said, what the F do you mean you are Daddy? Like, what like, this has been 15 years. Like, what am I missing? Like, how are you doing? How are you doing that? And she went like this. She put her finger to her forehead, to the side of her head. And I said, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my head? And she just started laughing, this uncontrollable, contagious laugh that got us both laughing for 15 minutes probably. It felt like it was 15 years. We just couldn't stop laughing because finally she had found a way to communicate to me that I could understand, and all that tension, all that pressure of not being heard was suddenly taken off of her. And she had been putting thoughts in my head, but I didn't think they were real because I didn't even think she was capable of thinking some of the thoughts, because we think if people can't speak, they can't think, but they can think.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have a great relationship because whenever she gets frustrated, I just go like this. And she does it. And Dan, that would have been enough. But what I realized is every single person that I work with, every single person that I see, every family that I become part of, I enter, does exactly the same thing. When people speak and they don't get heard, they yell.
Mm-hmm.
When they yell and they don't get heard, they try and create havoc. They try and create chaos. They try and mess a situation up. They try and create turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
When that turmoil doesn't work, they try to attack. That can be shooting people in a town square. It can be blowing up a building. It can be it can be ending a marriage. It can be ending a relationship. It can be trying to destroy a reputation. It can try and bring down a company or a country or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized my 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter has taught me the antidote to that. You just step it back to find a way to hear what people are saying, and if you can't understand it, you find another way. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking that into prisons. I'm taking that into hospitals. I'm taking that into homeless shelters. I'm taking that into business, into boardrooms. I'm taking that into schools. And I'm saying, what would happen if we were just able to listen to each other? What would happen? Instead of teaching each other, what would happen if we just listened to each other? What would come from that? What would we hear? And I've walked into rooms where people have expected me to speak to 1,000 people. And I've said to them, you know what? I'd rather hear what you have to say. There's 1,000 brilliant minds here.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what's going on right now. And then let's open it up to the room to figure out how do we go through this. And I'd love to talk with you under separate cover because there's something I'm working with a team of people out of Stanford that have developed this swarm mentality, where when you look at the way animals operate that are less intelligent than us, they operate in a swarm mentality where they have a collective mind and collectively they come together to solve problems, rather than this vertical mind where we solve problems for people.
Creating a common field.
We create a common field.
Mm.
And they are so successful in the work that they're doing. And they're doing it in things where they can be proven right or wrong. So they did it with the Kentucky Derby. And they were challenged to pick the winner of the Kentucky Derby. And they said, we're going to do more than that. We're going to try and tell you who's going to come in first, second, third, and fourth. And they brought 40 people randomly into a virtual room. And they made their mouse become a magnet. And there was an octagon in the middle of the room, and in the octagon were the names of the horses that were running the Kentucky Derby. and they magnetize. They said, we're going to magnetize your mouse so that you can pull the mouse towards the one that you want to have. And they all saw the field in front of them. And they said, but before we do that, we want you to write down who you think is going to come in first, second, third, and fourth. At the end of the experiment, a $20 bet on the experiment produced an $11,000 prize. They had come up with the first, second, third, fourth winners. On their individual cards, not one person picked first to come in first, not one person picked the horse to come in second. One person picked third out of all the 40 horses, out of all the 40 of them, and nobody picked fourth. So they've shown that
But in the common field.
Collectively in the common field, we're smarter, we take bigger risks, we make better decisions, we're bolder, and we work together to create solutions that we could never even imagine were possible. I believe we're on the paradigm of a new world. I believe we're on the change of a new paradigm. Bucky Fuller used to say, you can't change the way of the world with the thinking of the world the way it is today. You got to create a new paradigm that makes the old paradigm obsolete. So anyway, this is becoming my podcast, not yours. I'm sorry.
No. It's I'm learning. This is because I'm even seeing the tie-ins with the work of Lynn McTaggart, and the work that she was doing, and that stuff, which I do include aspects of my own work as well, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah. So you shared a lot with us, and pardon me for going on a rampage or a Dan page.
No, there's no rampage there. It was some good stuff I got from it.
Do you believe the world's talking to us now? Do you believe with all
the world physically, the physical Earth, or
the physical Earth? Do you believe our environment is talking to us? Do you believe that our situations that happen in life are talking to us? Do you believe our businesses are talking to us? Do you believe our bodies are talking to us? Do you believe the things that we don't normally think are talking to us actually have a voice and are talking to us?
I think everything is energy, and in its raw essence, without the egoic interruption, always speaks the voice of God. I think God's always speaking through the wind, through experiences that we witness. So I would say, yeah, God, the universe, source, the divine, the world, whatever you want to say it, is always speaking to us.
So do you believe all these situations that have come up less in the UK and maybe less in Cabo and more in America, but do you think that voice is trying to say something to us in particular as a world?
I think it's always saying something, and we're always going to hear it through the language capacity that we have.
Okay.
So two people will look at a situation. One will say that people's frustrations reach a certain point. People will say, look at those savages. I knew what they were like. Another one will say, this is lawlessness. Another one will say, thank God Trump's going to save us all. We're all going to look at the same thing and divine our own narrative from it. But I think the narrative is the egoic lens through which we see the world. And when we shut that down and take our glasses off and perhaps come into a room with ourselves and are ready to just hear the voice of it without our own ideas, preconceived notions and ideas, then we can hear what it really has to say.
Yeah, I love that when you slide the mosaic of those voices to the left, you get a chance to see what might actually be there, including our own voice. You've said a lot and you've shared so much, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Thanks for the opportunity.
If you had one thing that you wanted to say to the world right now, at this point, that would be simple, that would be something they could take with them right now and get started with, what would you like to say to them?
Against the backdrop of what we've been speaking of today, especially, what's really coming through is let go of your own stories and let the universe give you the real story.
Beautiful. You're going to, please, after this conversation ends, will you send me a headshot? Will you also send
I'll send you some bits.
All the links to all the things that you're doing?
Yeah.
And your website, just again, for people to be able to know, is...
It's dreamwithdan.com.
Dreamwithdan.com. Perfect. Dan, I want to thank you so much for being here.
This has been really cool. I want to thank Glai as well for giving me the heads up on this.
Glai, thank you for bringing me Dan. I love him as much as I loved you. I love this opportunity. And look how magic it is to come into a room where people don't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
and just take a few minutes and sit and speak with each other. In a world of strangers, Jim Morrison used to say when I was growing up in the 60s, he had he sang a song, "People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted.
I know this song.
Streets are uneasy when you're strange. When you're strange."
I think I know this song.
Yeah, it was a really popular song in the 60s. And
Mm-hmm.
so the world looks so different when we're strangers than when we're friends. And how long did it take? I promised him I would go an hour, and I've overstayed my welcome, so I
No,
apologize for that.
it's all a joy. It's all a joy.
But in an hour and 15 minutes, I'm walking away with a brother, really a brother, that I feel like I love this guy. And
Likewise.
3 minutes before we got on the phone, I had no idea he even existed. Right? So, what I want to do is I want to invite all of you to take this challenge, whether it's virtual or in reality. Go up to somebody you don't know and invite them to have a conversation and just say, "I want to listen to you. I want to be here for you. I want to hear who you are and what's important to you. I want to know how you are and how you're doing," and just give them the opportunity to speak to you. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to help them. You don't need to change them. You don't need to change the way they believe. But just hold the space for them to be loved and accepted, listened to, acknowledged, and heard. And when we do that, what we might find is this world that is full of strangers becomes a world that's full of friends.
Mm.
And when we live in a friendly world, everything about our response mechanisms change. When we're not scared of the world because they're strangers that we don't know how they're going to be, but they're friends, and some of my friends have the wackiest beliefs in the whole world, right? They're like crazy mofos, but that doesn't mean that I'm scared of them. I like salute them. I go for it. If that's what you feel, believe it. But as friends, we can do that. If they were strangers, I might be scared of them.
Mm.
And so, what would happen if each one of us just took on the challenge to find one person and make a stranger a friend, or just hold on? We don't even have to have that agenda. We just have to say, let's open up our hearts to one person and see how they're doing.
Mm.
Is there one last thing you want to say before we sign out?
Be okay with the unknown.
Be okay with the unknown. I love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, again, Dan, thank you so much. For those of you who have listened, please get in touch with this guy. I think you're going to love getting to know him more, just like I will. And if you like what you see, the way the world happens is when we like something, we share it with people we like to give them the same opportunity. Glai told Dan about his conversation with me, and that's why he's here. And so when we like something that our friends haven't had the opportunity to experience, why not share it with them? Give
Mm-hmm.
them the opportunity to like it or dislike it. They don't have to like it, but why not give them the opportunity? And then if we continue to like them, things will continue to grow. And if it's a good thing, it'll continue to grow. If it's not a good thing, it won't grow any further than it has to. And so do what you feel to do, but why not?
Mm-hmm.
For all of you who are listening, it's an honor to have this space with you where you listen in as I listen in to strangers. And let's get in touch with each other. Let's not stand on ceremony. If you like Dan, you can reach out to him and get in touch with him too. Ask him to help you do whatever you're doing. Ask to help him do whatever he's doing. Why not have a strange world where we all help each other to acquire and achieve what we want to do together? How beautiful would that be? Okay, until the next stranger comes into the room, I want to thank you guys for showing up, all of you. It's what an honor to be here with you and to hold the space. And we'll see you next stranger. Until that time, don't be strangers. Love each other. Ciao.